What's going on, Not Move Nation? Welcome to the Not Move podcast. Today's January 19th, 2026 at 12:08 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm going to be talking about some NBA today. I haven't done an NBA show in a while, so please bear with me. I'd like to give a shout out to our sponsors, BetUS, MyBookie.ag, Walmart.com, Open Goal, the MLB and NFL Pro Shops, and W Energy Drinks. If you guys have any specific questions, feel free to let me know. So let's get started here. We have a game starting within the hour. It looks like Milwaukee Bucks at Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta's favored by 2.5, over under 232.5. And then we have some games that start a little bit earlier today than usual, which makes things a little difficult because we don't know who's playing and who's not yet for a lot of these games. And that's so big with the usage rates. If I don't think the Lakers play today, but let's say, LeBron James and Luka Doncic were ruled out of a game, 30 minutes before tip off. That changes everything, So, hey, what's going on? Blessed up P. Hope you're having a great day, man. Thanks for joining today. All right. So, Milwaukee and Atlanta. Let's go look at the injury updates here for any injuries in this game. Like I said, guys, I've been out of the NBA game for a little bit now, so please bear with me. So Kristaps Porzingis is out. Looks like he's been out for a little bit too. He is that power forward / center for the Atlanta Hawks. Then Ricochet, the small forward / power forward for the Atlanta Hawks, is out of this one as well. Those look like the notable injuries in this game. And then I'm going to update rotowire.com to see if they have starting lineup confirmations. They do not quite yet. But it looks like Giannis is going to play today for Milwaukee, Miles Turner, and Jalen Johnson for the Atlanta Hawks. All right, so both of these teams are on a 3-game losing streak. Milwaukee leads the all-time series against Atlanta 121 to 120. So if Atlanta wins today, that evens the all-time series. Now, CJ McCollum, he's not projected to start today, but I wanted to mention his name real quick because he needs 5 3-point field goals to move into 17th place on the all-time 3-point field goals leaders list. He would pass Eric Gordon. Milwaukee as a team ranks 23rd in 3-point field goals allowed per game. So they are below average at defending that 3 ball. NBA defense versus position. CJ, from my understanding, typically runs shooting guard, right? So I'm going to fantasypros.com and seeing how many 3-point field goals Milwaukee allows to his specific position. They allow the 3rd most 3-point field goals made per game to shooting guards if he's going to run that shooting guard position here today. Maybe he runs a little bit of point. In that case, Milwaukee still allows the 9th most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing point guards. So there you have it there. Now, what's CJ McCollum been doing lately? Has he even been making 5 3-pointers in a game? What's his over under on 3-pointers today? Let's go take a look. Over under 2.5. Like I said, he needs 5 to move into 17th place on that all-time 3-point field goals leaders list. So, taking him for 5 would be ambitious, but he may have some extra motivation to do so today. So obviously the big player in this game. Let's see here. Blessed up P says I have Rollins under 24.5 PRA in this game, and McCollum over 21.5 points and rebounds. Okay, yeah, let's take a look at that. Thank you for the question there. So Rollins over under 24.5 PRA, and then McCollum over under 21.5 points plus rebounds. All right, let's go take a look. Now we're getting into the fun stuff. All right. So Rollins is projected to be that shooting guard today for Milwaukee. So I want to see how how Atlanta defends against shooting guards. Atlanta allows and you said you had the under on it? Okay, points and assists for McCollum. Okay. So Rollins, let's just go take a look at Rollins real quick. Okay. So first thing I want to do is look up Bucks player usage rate. It usually takes me to statmuse.com. I did notice in the past when I've done NBA shows that StatMuse and NBA.com have two different usage rates numbers, but they're pretty close with each other. I like the layout that StatMuse has. I think it's easier for me to interpret, so I'm just going to be using that here. So Ryan Rollins, 23.2 usage rate. Okay. And then usage rates, pretty much dictates how important a player is to that offense's production. Giannis obviously leads Milwaukee in usage rate with 37%. And then what I'm going to do is look up Ryan Rollins' game log here and look at his advanced statistics. I want to see if he's scoring more this season than any other season. I want to see if he's getting more rebounds this season than other seasons and or assists. It looks like the points and rebounds have dropped for Ryan Rollins. He's been in the league since the 2022-2023 season. And yeah, his points per 40 minutes and rebounds per 40 minutes has declined, but his assists per 40 minutes has gone up. It's at the second highest that it's been, or I guess the third highest it's been in his career. So, yeah, I'm thinking that's looking good so far, Blessed Up P. Now, let's go look at how many points per game, Atlanta is allowing to that shooting guard position. 3, 6, ninth most. Atlanta allows the ninth most points per game to shooting guards. And then rebounds, they allow, they're slightly above average at preventing rebounds to shooting guards. So that's good. And then assists. Atlanta has done well at limiting assists, which would be my biggest concern with Ryan Rollins, racking up assists. But Atlanta has done good at that position, at defending against that position. Atlanta 8th best at defending assists per game against shooting guards. And then as a team is where I'm concerned with Atlanta, right? They rank 26th in assists allowed per game. Now, the source that I found that information could be not quite updated yet. So when I type into my search engine here, assists per game, NBA, one of the sources it takes me to is teamrankings.com. And we are assists allowed per game is what I want, right? But it takes me to teamrankings.com. And since it's so early in the day, this may update later, right? Especially for the other games on today, and give us slightly different numbers. But yeah, Atlanta as a team, the assists that they allow per game concern me. They allow the 5th most assists per game to opposing teams. But I like how they defend against that specific position. And then we're going to go look up one more thing here. Ryan Rollins versus Atlanta Hawks stats. I want to know, what he's done against Atlanta in the past throughout his career. How many times has he gone over that line, the 24 and a half? Blessed up, P. He's never gone over that in his career against Atlanta. He actually played them. His most recent game was March 30th, 2025. He played 28 minutes, had 10 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. I think when I was looking earlier, though, his minutes have gone up. Let's go take a look. What kind of minutes he's getting? 30 this season, 31.6 minutes. And he played 28 that game. So it's pretty close to the minutes that he played in his most recent game against Atlanta. So he played 28 minutes. What is... So let's say we added an extra 3 minutes or so to his playing time today, 4 minutes. I think just based on what I'm seeing here, man, you got a good chance to hit that one. The Rollins under 24 and a half PRA. I think it looks pretty solid from what I can see here. Something else that I would like to see, maybe is it's a pretty specific search query, but Ryan Rollins versus Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Head-to-head statistics. Let's go see if we can find anything on that. Yeah, it's probably a little bit too specific there. But if you can find that information, I think it could be valuable. What else? I think Crafted NBA, right? Best defenders list in the NBA. We could maybe pull that up. Best defenders in the NBA. Let's see if anybody for Atlanta is on that list. I don't see anybody. And then what about worst defenders in the NBA? I think we can bring that up. Worst defenders in the NBA. I mean, there's just all types of stuff to look up, you know. Let's see if anybody for Atlanta. Trae Young. So this is a little outdated here, but gives us a good idea. And then we can also go check out Ryan Rollins, his game log, and what has he done for us lately. How many times in the past few games has he had 25 plus PRA? 3, 4. He's gone under the 24.5 points plus assists plus rebounds in his past 4 games. Went over against Golden State there. So only 1 out of 6, 2 out of 7, 3 out of 8, 3 out of 9. It's like 4 out of 10. So more times than not, he's gone under. He's never gone over that in this matchup. I think it looks pretty solid. Yeah, let's go check out CJ Unique. Points plus assists, 21.5. If anybody in the chat has any questions, feel free to let me know. All right, so Colum. Let's go check out his statistics here. Point guard / shooting guard for Atlanta, CJ McCollum. And I'm going to update rotowire.com real quick to see if we have any starting lineup confirmations. Not quite yet. Okay, so then I think you said points and assists for CJ. You said you liked it over. All right. So, yeah, let's go do that same thing here. CJ McCollum, game log. It takes me to ESPN.com, and then I'm going to look at his advanced statistics. In that same breath, I am going to go look at his usage rate, Atlanta Hawks usage rate. Oh, man. He leads the Hawks in usage rate this season. The next guy up is Trae Young, who's no longer there. Then it's Jalen Johnson. And then it's, Porzingis, who's out. And then Alexander Walker. Okay. So that's good. I like his usage rate. The fact that he leads this team in usage rate is good. Minutes per game, 26.8. So, SGA probably leads Oklahoma City in usage rate, right? But his minutes are higher. But, I like that 31.7% usage rates. And then if he's coming off of the bench, something else that I think that would be beneficial is seeing how many points, Milwaukee is allowing, how many bench points they're allowing, bench points allowed NBA is what I'll type in here. Teams that allow the most bench points this season. Milwaukee allows the 11th most. I would like that to be in a per game basis, though. Instead of just how many. It's giving me the total of bench points, which is a good benchmark, But I like to get it a little bit more specific, and so if you can do that, I think that could be beneficial for you to make decisions. CJ McCollum, let's go check out his points and assists per 40 minutes and compare that to previous seasons. It's pretty steady, His points per 40 minutes it's been steady, I would say. It's at 24.4 points per 40, and then the assists per 40. It's pretty steady as well. I see a slight drop in the assists, but let's go take a look and see, McCollum versus Bucks statistics here. McCollum versus the Bucks. Let's say the last 10 games. CJ McCollum stats versus Bucks last 20 games. Why are you guys taking me to hockey? Here we go. Yeah, sure. Last 20 games against Milwaukee. Let's go take a look at that. How many times in the past, let's say 10 games, has he gone over, had 22 plus points plus assists? 1 of 1, 2 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 9, 8 out of his last 10 games. He has gone over the 21.5 points plus assists versus the Milwaukee Bucks. I like that. Is there any specific matchups that we could look at? Maybe somebody for Milwaukee who hasn't been there for a long time that CJ McCollum has played in the past. Miles Turner. I know Miles Turner will not be his primary defender, but I think it's worth looking at, McCollum versus Miles Turner game log is what I'll look up here, or not game log, head-to-head statistics is what I like to look at. And then it takes me to landofbasketball.com. I think this is a good source here. So I'm looking for CJ McCollum versus Miles Turner statistics. There we go. CJ McCollum is averaging 20.3 points per game and 3.9 assists per game, which gets us over that 21.5 points plus assists line. He averages that he has averaged that in 16 career games against Miles Turner, according to this source that I'm looking at. So how many times in the recent past has CJ gone over this line against Miles Turner? One out of his last, one out of 3, 1 out of 4, 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 4 out of 9, 5 out of 10. I just wanted to make sure, that he had never gone over this line before against Miles Turner. But 5 out of 10, he's gone over that against Turner. I mean, I don't like that, but it doesn't, I wouldn't deduct a point here from CJ McCollum because of it. There are some other things that I've already looked at that I like. And then let's go take a look at, I noticed earlier when I was doing my research that Milwaukee they rank 23rd in 3-point field goals allowed per game to opposing teams, which is one of CJ McCollum's strengths, is that 3-point shot. He ranks 29th best in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. And he ranks second best on the Atlanta Hawks in 3-point field goals made per game, behind Nickeil Alexander-Walker. So I think this is a strength for CJ McCollum. And then, once again, we'll go filter this by 3-point field goals allowed by the Atlanta Hawks to opposing shooting guards. The Atlanta Hawks allow the sixth most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing shooting guards, which is good, considering that's one of his strengths. But I was looking for Milwaukee. Like I said, I'm a little bit rusty here. Milwaukee still allows the third most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing shooting guards. And just in case I misspoke, Milwaukee as a team ranks 23rd in 3-point field goals allowed per game. So they are below average. But let's say he runs point, still Milwaukee allows the ninth most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing point guards. So, according to fantasypros.com. So, I like that. And then we were talking about assists, right? CJ McCollum assists. Milwaukee is below average as a team in preventing assists allowed per game. They rank 17th in assists allowed per game. Let's say to the point guard position, they're still below average. And let's say to the shooting guard position, that's where Milwaukee has actually done pretty decently at. They're a little bit above average at limiting those assists. But I've seen much more things that I like than I dislike. That would be the only concern that I have so far about it. And then we can go look at, what's he done for us lately, CJ McCollum. How many times has he had 22 plus points and assists in his last few games? 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 2 out of his last 4. He's gone over that line. 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 3 out of 8, 3 out of 9, 3 out of 10. So he's only gone over in his last 3 out of 10 games, but so that would be something else that I'm a little concerned about. But I think, overall, I like that as well. I would have to lean towards him getting that. But then I would definitely check out those bench points allowed, right? When I look at teams that allow the most bench points this season, Milwaukee's up there. But once again, I would like that in a per game basis, and it's not in that format. And the reason why I want it in a per game basis is because what if some teams have played an extra three games, or Milwaukee has played an extra 3 games than other teams? Well, yeah, I mean, even if you have the worst, let's say you have the worst bench defense in the NBA, and you've played 10 games less than everybody else, or even 5, that number could be very skewed. It could make your bench defense look better than what it is, So hopefully that helps you there, man. I think, Giannis is obviously somebody that people are interested in for this game. And I still want to see if we can find some starting lineups here for this one. Not yet. Starts here pretty soon. I'm surprised they haven't come up with the lineups yet. But I like to use rotowire.com for the lineup confirmations. They are pretty accurate. There are times where players, you'll find that they, minutes before tip-off, they may decide that they're not going to play. Giannis has actually done that to us earlier this season around Halloween, right? There was a game that he did that to us. I think Milwaukee still ended up winning that game against Golden State that day. Anyways, yeah, let's talk about maybe Giannis a little bit. I'm not going to dig into his props unless you guys really want me to. But if you are thinking about Giannis props, here's what I'll say about that. Atlanta ranks 23rd in points in the paint allowed per game, so they're below average at defending against that. And Giannis, and points in the paint per game are big. I like to. I think those are good spots to target points in the paint guys against bad points in the paint defenses because Giannis can really pick up a lot of easy baskets near the basket. And I typically would rather have a player prop that I'm going with. I would typically rather have that player getting easy buckets rather than those contested, even near the rim, contested baskets, and then even 3-point field goals. I know like Steph Curry's really good at threes, and maybe a couple other people, but those are typically tougher shots. And if their shots not falling, it's gonna be tough to hit that line. Whereas if their shots not falling and they can still get points in the paint, then we still have a chance at hitting that. But yeah, Giannis, I like his points in the paint advantage today. I really like his fast break advantage too. Um, no other team allows more fast break points per game than Atlanta, and Giannis ranks third best in the NBA in fast break points per game. I think even a triple double for Giannis today could be doable. Now, don't get your hopes up too much here. He's only had a triple double in 2 of his last 20 games against Atlanta, and I do not believe he has a triple double this season. I want to go look at that actually. I'll let you know if he has a triple double or not. He does not yet. But I keep seeing this line dropping. I know I looked this morning and I saw his triple double around, I think, 15 to 1. And then, before I started going live here, I saw it at about 11 to 1. Now I'm seeing it at plus 920. So, and the reason why I give him triple double potential here today is because not only do I think he's got a good like points matchup here, but um, Atlanta as a team ranks 26th in assists allowed per game and 22nd in rebounds allowed per game. So they're below average in the assist allowed and rebounds allowed per game categories. He typically runs power forward, right? So I want to see how Atlanta defends against that. They allow the third most rebounds to power forwards per game, and then the fifth most assists. I'm thinking at. I'm not thinking. I mean, that doesn't necessarily look like a bad look here. It doesn't look like a bad look. At 10 to 1 is what I saw it at. I think it's very doable. Maybe you just want to go with his points. Like I said, I don't know what they're listed at, but I think he could, yeah, have a good game with the points. And then I'll give you guys just kind of my interpretation on who I think will win this game. If you guys don't have any other questions about this game. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about it. So we said that Atlanta, right? They're favored by I saw it at 2.5 just a second ago. Now it's at 1.5. So Atlanta's favored by 1.5 points. Atlanta is better against the spread this season, but they've played three more games than Milwaukee has. Points in the paint advantage. I have the numbers typed up here. I just have to analyze them with you guys here on the fly. Points in the paint advantage, I would give Atlanta an advantage, but they don't have Kristaps Porzingis in today, right? Who I think is pretty decent at points in the paint, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe that advantage for Atlanta is not as big, but I do give Atlanta a slight points in the paint advantage. Here's the thing is Atlanta is better at scoring points in the paint than Milwaukee is. Atlanta ranks 10th in that category, whereas Milwaukee ranks 27th. But Atlanta's points in the paint defense is much worse than Milwaukee's. Atlanta ranks 23rd in points in the paint allowed per game. Milwaukee ranks 5th best in points in the paint per game. So the fact that Milwaukee ranks 5th best in points in the paint allowed per game really disrupts what Jalen Johnson likes to do. Jalen Johnson ranks 10th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. So I think taking away that is going to be key for Milwaukee in this one. Fast break points per game, same story. Atlanta's better at scoring up fast break points. Atlanta is worse at defending against it. Atlanta is actually the worst team in the league at defending against fast break points per game. But I still give Atlanta, a decent sized fast break points per game advantage. Three-point field goals. Here's the thing, too, guys, is I know today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And he was born in Atlanta, Georgia. So if you like Atlanta, you got that going for you. And then 3-point field goals made per game. I'd give Milwaukee a very slight advantage there. Both of these teams are pretty decent at shooting three balls. Milwaukee's slightly better, but Atlanta's slightly better at defending against it. I'd give Milwaukee a slight three-pointer advantage. Assists per game. I'd give Atlanta advantage there. Rebounds, pretty equal. Still Atlanta advantage. Turnovers per game versus turnovers forced per game. Atlanta advantage. So, yeah, I think my pick on this one's going to be Atlanta. Atlanta. Let me go look at against the spread stuff too. I already mentioned Atlanta's better against the spread than Milwaukee, but I want to look into it a little bit more here. I want to look at Atlanta as a home favorite. They're 1-8 against the spread as a home favorite, which is worse in the NBA. What about Milwaukee as a road underdog? 7-6. Eek. I don't see enough information to absolutely make me love either side. And just based on that alone would make me a little worried about taking Atlanta -1.5. If I were to go with somebody, I think Atlanta sounds pretty decent here, but they might win by exactly 1 point. It'd be rare. I mean, it would be pretty crazy if they did, right? Exactly 1 point. What about their money line as a home favorite? 3-6. They're the worst team in the NBA as a home favorite. As an away underdog, what about Milwaukee? They're 3-10 as an away underdog. So, yeah, I'm still gonna lean towards Atlanta in this one. I am worried about that pick, though. I think the main reason why I'm worried about it, not necessarily just the trends that I just looked at, but Jalen Johnson, he likes to score points in the paint. That's one of Atlanta's big weapons, and Milwaukee's good at defending against that. I think Atlanta is going to have to knock down some threes today. Nikhil Alexander Walker, CJ McCollum. I think Atlanta's going to need some 3-pointers to stay in this one. Looks like the starting lineups just came out for Milwaukee. Ryan Rollins, Ryan Rollins is running point guard. Blessed up, P. If you're still in the building, he's running point. So points per game, Atlanta to the point guard, still slightly below average at defending against that, and then below average at defending against the assists and rebounds. I know you liked his under on that. I would have felt better if he was running shooting guard, but just because they listed him as a point guard doesn't necessarily mean that he won't, slide over into that shooting guard position from time to time. So, but I'm torn on this game. I would like a little bit more time to do research on. Let me look up one other thing real quick. Thought I saw something that I kind of liked earlier this morning. Let me look at something real quick, guys. Hope everybody's having a good day today. Thank you for joining. I'm torn on this game, to be honest with you. Okay. Right now, I would lean towards Atlanta money line. Don't necessarily feel great about that. Okay, but maybe we can find something else that looks a little bit better. All right, the next game on would be Oklahoma City Thunder at Cleveland Cavaliers. That starts at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. Oklahoma City is 21-22 against the spread this season. Cleveland is 15-28, which is the worst in the NBA. Cleveland is 6.5 point underdogs. And I want to know what Cleveland is against the spread as a home underdog. 0-1. So they're not home underdogs often. And then what about OKC as a road favorite? Looks like they're above league average. 9-11, but still above league average as a road favorite. I didn't see anything throughout history with these teams that was significant enough for me to write down in my notes. I looked at Oklahoma City and Cleveland's history playing against each other to see if one team was just a dominant over the other one. I think the game where I saw that a team was dominant over another team historically was the Clippers against the Wizards. The Clippers have won 9 straight games against the Wizards. And I believe that the only team today that played yesterday is the Brooklyn Nets. Okay. So Oklahoma City and Cleveland. If you guys have any questions about any player props, Clippers versus Wizards. Yeah, we can do that. Blessed up P. Clippers versus Wizards. DeAndre Hunter. Let's go take a look. Okay, so you want to let's go back. Let's go stick with that. I like to kind of go in order, especially when we have earlier games on. Because we can talk about the later games, and I have more information to work with these earlier games. I have a better idea of who's going to play and who's not. But Clippers and Wizards, yeah, that starts shortly after that. Once we start getting into those 5 p.m. Eastern time games, that's when things are a little bit foggier. I'm just seeing right here, Jalen Brunson is questionable to play today, point guard for the Knicks. Same with Josh Hart, Cooper Flag. So, Paul George and Embiid, Devin Booker. I mentioned that Brooklyn's playing on a back-to-back today. I don't believe Michael Porter Jr. played today, and I'm seeing that he's probable to play today for the Brooklyn Nets. Okay. Yeah, let's look at Oklahoma City versus Cleveland. Okay, so Blessed Up P says he likes Donovan Mitchell, under points, which is, or maybe he just wants me to look into it. Let's go see what his line is. I'm looking here on DK, over under 27.5. Over under 27.5 points. Okay. Something that Donovan Mitchell is good at is points in the paint per game. Unfortunately for him, Excuse me. Unfortunately for him, Oklahoma City is the best at defending against points in the paint per game. So I think Oklahoma City's defense can definitely smother him in that regard. Also, Donovan Mitchell is good at fast break scoring. He ranks fifth best in the NBA. Once again, unfortunately for him, he's going up against the best fast break point defense. Oklahoma City ranks first in fast break points allowed per game. Here's where I think Donovan Mitchell will have to thrive in order to go over that point total is the 3-point shot. He ranks second best in the NBA right now in 3-point field goals made per game, and Oklahoma City is the fourth worst at defending against the 3-point field goals allowed per game to teams. So I think that's, where Mitchell has to capitalize on today to go over those points. Now, to that specific position is something that I want to look at too with Oklahoma City. He's projected to be the starting point guard today for Cleveland. But I want to see, Oklahoma City, how are they against that specific position? They're below average, but they're not in like the bottom five, So I think they may have a chance here to contain that three ball a little bit. I want to look at a few other things here, right? I want to go look at Cleveland Cavaliers. Cleveland Cavs versus player usage rate. Pretty sure he'll be leading this team in usage rate. Yeah, 32.2%. And then it's Garland. Are there any injuries that could potentially increase Donovan Mitchell's usage today? Well, I'm looking at his usage, and it's at 32.2%, which leads this team. The next man up is Darius Garland, who's out. He's out. So that makes me a little concerned about Donovan Mitchell trying to score even more today than what he normally does. Any other players? Merrill and Strus, which those guys are not high on this usage rating or usage rate list. So the next guys other than Donovan Mitchell is going to, and I mentioned Garland's out. It's going to be Hunter, Mobley, Proctor, who's only getting 10.6 minutes per game, and then Jared Allen. So, Donovan Mitchell's usage rate worries me and that 3-point shot. But let's go look at Donovan Mitchell. Let's go look at a few things here. Donovan Mitchell statistics, advanced statistics. His points per 40 minutes is at an all-time high this year. So he's scoring more points per 40 minutes that he plays this season than any other season he's been in the NBA. And he's been in the NBA since the 2017-18 season. And it's by a good chunk too. His assists are actually at the second highest that it's been at as well. Assists per 40 minutes. But we're talking about points, right? So that worries me. But let's go look at Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell versus Thunder statistics. And let's say last 10 games. How many times has he gone over this point total in the last 10 games against Oklahoma City? Only one out of the last 10 games has Donovan Mitchell scored over 27 and a half points against the Oklahoma City Thunder. 1 out of 10. So that's a good trend if you're thinking about taking Donovan Mitchell's under today. Um, then I wanted to look at Donovan Mitchell versus SGA head to head. I'm sure that'd be pretty identical here. How many times against SGA has he gone over that point total? 2, 3, 4 times out of 12 games throughout his career. Okay. And then is there anybody for Cleveland that for Oklahoma City that he may have played against in the past that plays for Oklahoma City that hasn't played there in a while for a while? Not really seeing anything there. What about 3-pointers against Donovan Mitchell? I'm gonna go back to that versus SGA head-to-head statistics. I just want to see, like, is he draining a lot of threes against SGA? 1 for 4 in his most recent game, which was January 16th of 2025, so about a year ago. 2 out of 7, 1 out of 9, 4 out of 11, 4 out of 11, 3 out of 10, 2 out of 10. This is Donovan Mitchell's 3-point field goals against SGA. So it looks like, SGA has defended against that pretty good. I mentioned that Oklahoma City is good at defending against points in the paint and fast break points. I'm thinking maybe some of that, could have to do with Hartenstein's defense. He's out today, Hartenstein, and really he hasn't played for a little bit now. There's been a lot of games that he's actually missed, which I like that. That tells me that this number, these numbers that I see for the Oklahoma City team defense are still solid, considering, Hartenstein hasn't played in a lot of games this season. So I think I like it. Blessed up P. Only concerns are going to be usage rate increase because of the injury to Darius Garland. The points per 40 minutes is at an all-time high, and Oklahoma City is bad at defending against the 3-ball as a team. But the reason why I'm leaning more towards it is because he's only gone over that in 1 out of his last 10 games against Oklahoma City. He hasn't particularly shot the 3-point ball well in games against SGA. And some of these other strengths that Donovan Mitchell has, the points in the paint and fast break points per game, Oklahoma City defends against well. I think there's also some potential blowout potential here today, with Oklahoma City. They're on a 1-game losing streak. Cleveland on a 2-game winning streak. You know how we look at those splits in the NFL, right? Like, is a player better when they're playing on grass versus turf? I think that information could be good with NBA too. Is Donovan Mitchell better at home? Is his 3-point shot better at home? This season, his 3-point field goal percentage has actually been lower at home than the road. So I like that. you know. Points per game have been a little bit higher at home this season, 29.6. And then yes, we could go look at, the what's he done for us lately. How many times has he hit 28 plus points in his last 10 games? He's got hit that in his last 3 out of 5 games, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 6 out of 8, 6 out of 9, 6 out of 10. So more times than not, I think it's going to be real close. But, I still have to lean with him going under that. I think if he had better 3-point history against SGA, I'd be a little bit more hesitant about it. That would be my main concern once again. DeAndre Hunter, threes or points plus rebounds is the question here. So take a look. So it goes back to those bench points, because DeAndre Hunter should be coming off the bench today. He is not in the projected starting lineup. And so we want to go look at DeAndre Hunter's lines, right? 3-pointers for DeAndre Hunter, over under 1.5. And then what was the other question here? Points plus rebounds. So let's go take a look at what his points and plus rebounds are. Points plus rebounds for Hunter. Do we have an over-under for that? Points plus rebounds, over-under 17.5. I'm looking at the DK book here. Okay. So, yeah, I like, just off the flip here, Hunter over the 1.5 3-pointers, just because Oklahoma City's bad as a team defending against that, right? I want to see how they are. He's listed on the FanDuel Daily Fantasy app as a small forward / power forward. If I'm not mistaken, typically whenever I see Hunter, he's let's say he's in the starting lineup, right? He's not in the projected starting lineup today, but typically when I see him in the starting lineup, sometimes he'll be listed as the starting small forward. I think of him as more of a small forward. So, DeAndre Hunter over 101.5 threes. So I want to see how Oklahoma City is at defending against the small forward position specifically. OKC fifth worst. OKC ranks fifth worst at defending against small forward 3-pointers, which I like. But let's go check out the power forward position. Maybe he's going to be running some power today. In that case, Oklahoma City allows the second most. So either way, Oklahoma City's in the bottom 5 at defending against small forwards and power forwards, 3-point field goals made per game. So I like that. What has DeAndre Hunter done for us lately? He's hit those threes. He's not getting a high volume of 3-pointers, man. Looks like about he's not, there's some games earlier in the season where he was shooting 12 3-pointers. But as of late, 5. I'm going to list his last few games. His 3-point field goal attempts. Uh, 5, 7, 2, 2, 3, 1, 5, 7. So it was kind of all over the place. I want to see what he's doing in these blowout games. He shot 3 out of 7 against Philadelphia, and Cleveland won that game by over 20 points. And I'm looking for some other blowout games. Does he have a better chance? That's the question. Does he have a better chance at going over that line in blowout victories or losses, or does he have a better chance at going over that line in close games? And which one do you think is going to happen today? It looks like just off, just looking at this, it kind of just looks like he hasn't been getting there in the blowout wins as much as the closer games. Bench points, I do want to look at that. I didn't see it on a quick. I want to see if Oklahoma City is allowing a lot of bench points. They're in the middle of the pack. Okay. And then I want to look at DeAndre Hunter versus Thunder statistics. Giannis is out here making layups. Okay. DeAndre Hunter, DeAndre Hunter stats versus Thunder. That's what I want. He's played 3 games throughout history against them, and he has never had 2+ 3-point field goals made. He was 1 for 7, 1 for 4, and 0 for 3. And he played at least 30 minutes in all of those games. It's concerning. I can try to look up DeAndre Hunter versus SGA head-to-head statistics just to throw it in here and see if we find anything. Hunter. No, I don't want the comparison. I want the head-to-head statistics. Like I said, I think we'll probably get pretty identical SGA versus Hunter. Pretty identical stats that we looked up with Hunter versus Oklahoma City. He's only played 2 career games against SGA. SGA won both of those games. But yeah, he hadn't gone over that in those 2 career games against SGA. I'm concerned about Hunter getting those threes today. It is heavily juiced. I did see it at like minus 150 for Hunter. What about his points? DeAndre Hunter versus Thunder. Let's go look that up again. Versus Thunder statistics. How many times has he had uh, 18 plus points. He's at least got there in 1 out of 3 career games against Oklahoma City, blessed up he, instead of 0 times. So, based on that alone, I would consider the points more than the threes. And then what else did we want here? DeAndre Hunter. What's he done for us? What's he done for us lately? DeAndre Hunter with the points. And is he scoring at a higher rate this season than previous seasons? Is there anything that could increase his usage today? He's only averaging 14.1 points per game this season. But I want to see how many times he's had 18 plus points in his last handful of games. Wow, man. He hasn't had 18 plus points in his last 12 games. DeAndre Hunter. And he's had 2+ 3-point field goals made in his last, let's see, 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 5 out of 10. So he has better current history going over the 3-pointers than he does going over the 17.5-point total. Oh, we were doing points plus rebounds, huh? Yeah, see, I told you I'm a little bit rusty with NFL and everything, but I'll get back in the swing before you know it. Yeah, points plus rebounds. He has still 17.5. He's gone over that in 1 out of 3 career games against them. Oklahoma City does allow rebounds, man. Oklahoma City does allow some rebounds to opposing teams. They rank 25th in rebounds allowed per game to opposing teams. So let's go look to see how many rebounds per game Oklahoma City's allowing to that power forward position and small forward position. They're slightly below average at allowing the rebounds per game to the small forward position. And then, small forward, Oklahoma City's good at defending against that. Above average, I should say. Above average. And then, so let's go back to that where I misspoke and let's talk about Hunter points plus rebounds. He's had 18 plus points plus rebounds in his last 1 out of 1, 2 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 9, 7 out of 10 games. Is there any reason why he could maybe see some more time today on the court than what he normally does? Are there any injuries for Cleveland? Garland, the last game. Okay, so Garland was just recently injured, and the last time Garland played was January 14th. So the last game that Cleveland played, Garland did not play, and in that game, DeAndre Hunter had 31 minutes. Makes me wonder if that. Let's see. Let's go look at the Indiana game, December 1st. Garland didn't play in that game either. 28 minutes by Hunter, right? Who's averaging 26.9 minutes per game this season. And then what about against Toronto on November 24th? Is that right? November 24th. November 24th. Doesn't even look like DeAndre Hunter played in that one. I'm trying to just see like when he does get like 28 minutes, is he getting there with those 3-pointers? If I had to choose one or the other, Hunter over under 1.5 threes or over under 17.5 points plus rebounds. Something else that we need to do is look to see if his rebounds per 40 minutes is higher this season than previous years. Yeah, it's up there. Points is trending down a little bit. Are trending down a little bit. Another idea is the assists. His assists per 40 minutes are at an all-time high. What is Oklahoma City? As a team, Oklahoma City is good at defending against assists. To that specific small forward position, they're really good at defending against that. Power forward, about average. I think I would be more inclined to take the over 17.5 points plus rebounds instead of the 2 plus 3-point field goals. I didn't like that history against SGA. And let's say he is knocking down some threes, man. That should give him some better chance to go over the points plus rebounds. And I like where his rebounds per 40 minutes is at. I like the fact that Oklahoma City is not good at defending against those rebounds. They rank 25th in rebounds allowed per game. And he has gone over the points plus rebounds at least in 1 out of 3 games against Oklahoma City, compared to never, hitting 2 plus 3-point field goals against Oklahoma City. Jalen Tyson over 14.5 points or PRA? Let's go take a look. Thank you for the question. See, Milwaukee's up 16-3. I'm just browsing this real quick. See what Giannis is doing. Okay. All right, let's get back into it. You were talking about Tyson. So the thing about Jalen Tyson, you already know what I'm going to say, right? The thing about Jalen Tyson is that it's a little bit tougher for me to predict a player like this because this is his second year in the NBA. And he didn't get a lot of playing time last year. I mean, there were some games where he had 30, 40 minutes, but overall, he didn't play many games last season. And in the ones that he did play, he got like around 10 minutes, if that. But, let's go take a look real quick at Tyson. What was your question here? Over under 14.5 points. 14.5 points. And then let's go look at his PRA. Tyson PRA looking like 22.5. Okay. So So he's projected to be the starting shooting guard for Cleveland today. Jalen Tyson. He is capable of shooting that three ball. And Oklahoma City is bad at defending against that three as a team. What about to that shooting guard position? Looks like slightly below average at defending against that. Just wanted to look at one of his strengths, to see if it was. Well, I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't necessarily look at this prop or consider this prop a whole lot more if Oklahoma City was really good at defending against the three or against his specific position. But that seems like one of his strengths. So right off the bat, I think, the points look doable. Rebounds allowed per game by Oklahoma City as a team. I've already mentioned they're not good at limiting rebounds to opposing teams. What Oklahoma City is good at as a team is limiting assists to opposing teams. They rank fourth best in that category. And if we filter this by assists allowed to that shooting guard position, Oklahoma City still, they're about average, or maybe even a little bit below average, which is good news if you like his PRA today. And then the rebounds. Oklahoma City allows the fourth most rebounds to shooting guards. So I think that's pretty solid there. How many times in his last game has he had 15 plus points? 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6, 2 out of 7, 2 out of 8, 3 out of 9. Only 3 out of his last 10 games. He's gone over that. And then what about the PRA? How many times has he had 23 plus PRA? 1 out of 2, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5, probably the same. 2 out of 6, 2 out of 7, 2 out of 8, 3 out of 9, 3 out of 10. I think I'm just looking at it as his assists. I think I heard you talking about I think it was last season, Blessed Up P. I think I heard you talking about potential assists, potential rebounds, and all that stuff. Well, the most, and I'm not necessarily, I don't necessarily talk about that a whole lot on this show, but what I can say is that I'm worried about the assists, and I'm looking at his game log throughout this whole season, and the most assists that he's had in a game is 4. Whereas the rebounds, he's had a game where he's had 15 rebounds. Another one here, 13. Another one, 11. 11. So I think I think this also comes down to how many minutes is he going to get. He got 38 minutes in his most recent game. Dropped 39 points. Can he do that against Oklahoma City, who's a very good defensive team? I think, I would feel more comfortable with points and rebounds. I don't know what that line is at, but I'm not really interested in the assists. I don't think, I don't, just based off what I'm looking at, I don't see like the potential for him to have an incredible amount of out an incredible amount of assists today, you know? But I do see that rebound potential where he could possibly have a bunch of rebounds against Oklahoma City, who is bad at defending against rebounds as a team and to a specific position. It's tough to decide between the two, the points and then the points. Do I add the rebounds in there or not? I think, the fact that he, once again, man, the fact that he does have games where he's had a large amount of rebounds makes me like his that PRA, if I were to have to go with it, one of those. But I would maybe even chop off that assist and just do PR. But overall, with this game, Cleveland's worse against the spread. They're the worst in the NBA against the spread. Oklahoma City 21 and 22 against the spread. Cleveland 15 and 28 against the spread. Let's talk about SGA a little bit here, and let's look at like maybe some potential injuries and all that stuff, right? So Jalen Williams, there's two Jalen Williams for this team, Jalen, the typically the one that people like to play with player props more. He's out. So he's going to be out for a while. Looks like he'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. He has a hamstring issue going on. If you guys like SGA props, I think he could get more usage today. And even Chet, with Hartenstein being out as well with a calf issue. We already talked about Darius Garland being out. I would also look if you're interested in the Hunter, DeAndre Hunter, and or Jalen Tyson props. Let's go see. I'm not going to do it this second, but there's some time before the game. I would look to see what those guys have done in games that Darius Garland did not play in. What were their usage rates? And how many minutes were they getting? And then Sam Merrill being out, maybe that, gets Hunter and or Tyson a little bit more time because Merrill, I mean, he's played in a lot of games recently. He did miss some time earlier, but as of late, he's played a good amount of time, but now he's back out. And then Struess, he's been out for a while. But I'm just gonna browse this real quick. SGA, he's good at points in the paint. But Cleveland is good at defending against that. They rank seventh best in points in the paint allowed per game. And then fast break points is where I really think SGA can do good today. He ranks first best on this Oklahoma City Thunder team in fast break points per game. Cleveland is not good at defending against those fast break points. They rank 24th in fast break points allowed per game. So I think, SGA fast break points he can get. And then 3-pointers, Cleveland's not necessarily good at defending against that. They rank 22nd. Oklahoma City doesn't really they didn't have anybody in the top 50 of the NBA leaders in 3-point field goals made per game. Just off the top of my head, I think like Dort is maybe their best 3-point shooter. But I want to see how many points per game, Cleveland. And the reason why I'm looking at this, I'm not necessarily looking at the player props for SGA. I don't have the time to look at every player prop, but you know, I just want to see kind of how Cleveland defends against Oklahoma City, their best players' strengths. You know, Cleveland looks like they're slightly below average at defending against points per game to opposing point guards. Defensively, Cleveland ranks 15th in team defensive efficiency. So they are not, I believe last season they were way up there. I think they finished the season ranked first. Let me go take a look real quick. I think they finished last season first in team defensive efficiency. Oklahoma City did, and then Cleveland was ranked 8th, which is they've kind of gone down a little bit with their defensive prowess from last season. Anyways, yeah, I think SGA can have a solid game. Like I said, I don't like the fact that Cleveland's good at defending against points in the paint, but I do like that fast break potential there for SGA. But typically, you're going to get more points in the paint per game than fast break points. So I think, um, you know, this is not the most optimal matchup for SGA, but sometimes that doesn't matter, right? With these all-star players, because really SGA can get it done against anybody. It's just when will he? And I think that SGA has a better chance to hit player props on days like this than games against the Washington Wizards, because I think when he plays a bad team, people are like, more inclined to look at his player prop. So that the books might raise those points up a little bit more. They might raise the rebounds and assists up a little bit more. Whereas if he's playing against a competitive team, against a pretty good defensive team, people may be a little bit more hesitant to play SGA props. But he can really get it done against anybody. Like I said, I don't know what his line is at today, but feels like maybe a decent day to do that. Obviously, there's some other factors into it, right? What has he done in the past against Cleveland and what those lines are at? But I just wanted to get a general idea of how Cleveland can defend against this strength of his. And really where Cleveland is weak is the fast break points allowed per game, which is he's good at, and the three-pointers, and the fact that Oklahoma City doesn't have great three-point shooters makes me a little worried about Oklahoma City today. I think Cleveland would probably be a little they'd be a little bit more vulnerable to teams that are good at shooting threes than teams that are not, right? I don't like the fact that Cleveland is the worst team in the NBA against the spread. I do give Cleveland a slight assist advantage. Let's talk about the advantages. I'd give OKC a slight points in the paint advantage. I'd give Oklahoma City. I'd really give Cleveland a slight fast break advantage, but Oklahoma City is still the best team in the league at defending against that. Really, that's close. 3-point field goals. That's where I think Cleveland, has to capitalize on. It's got to be Donovan Mitchell. So if you believe in Donovan Mitchell today, I think, Cleveland is probably the play here. If you do not believe in Donovan Mitchell, I would think Oklahoma City would be the play here. Once again, Oklahoma City is very good at defending against points in the paint and those fast break points. The 3-point shot is where they're vulnerable. And Donovan Mitchell is the only person for Cleveland that ranks in the top 50 of the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game, but he's really good at it. He ranks second, you know. So it's, do we believe in Donovan Mitchell today or not? I'm leaning more towards not believer, a non-believer in him. After looking over his point total there, blessed up P. You know, we talked about that a little bit. I'm not right all the time though, guys. Believe me, I am not right all the time. Assists. I'd give Cleveland a slight assist per game advantage. Rebounds. I'd give Cleveland a slight rebounds advantage. Turnovers. OKC slight advantage. Cleveland plus 6.5. How are they? How have they been doing at home this season as home team? Worst team against the spread as a home team, man. That's ugly, you know. I'm going to lean towards Oklahoma City in this one. I think that's really the deciding factor for me, is the fact that Cleveland is the worst team against the spread in the NBA. And they're the worst team against the spread as a home team. That's tough to get behind, you know. I do think that line has dropped a little bit to minus 5.5. Yeah, I would feel a little bit more comfortable with that. You know, 6.5 is a pretty big number. 5.5 for Oklahoma City, coming off a loss, bouncing back against a team who's got a 2-game win streak. Yeah, I would lean towards Oklahoma City covering that. What do you guys think? You guys like Oklahoma City or Cleveland today? You know, just browsing my notes here, you know, what team do I like the most today? I think it's going to be Phoenix, guys. What is that spread? Minus 8.5. Sometimes when we take those big favorites, we have to take that line down a little bit. Is this if Phoenix was at home, I would probably consider taking that line down a little bit more. 8.5. I mean, taking it down to what, 7.5, I think decreases those odds a lot, you know. 6.5 minus 162. If you're comfortable with a minus 188, you know, minus 5.5, minus 217, minus 4.5 for Cleveland. For Phoenix, I think looks pretty good today. But just the normal spread, I'll go ahead and say that is my favorite play today. Unless I find a reason throughout the show that I don't like it. Phoenix, minus 8.5. Favorite play today is what I'll lock into my notes here. Let's see if you guys have any other questions. No? Okay. If you guys don't have any questions about player props or anything, I'll just kind of give you guys some statistics that maybe you could listen to and help you out throughout the day. There's still a lot of time for you guys to be able to look at some stuff throughout the day. I did mention that the Clippers are on a 9-game win streak against the Wizards. The Wizards are the second worst team in the NBA against the spread. Zubac, I think, has a good matchup today. He's real good at scoring points in the paint. I'm not going to go over every single player prop unless you guys have a question, okay? Uh, I'll just give you a little bit of general information here, maybe some stuff to think about or look up before the games. But yeah, Zubac ranks ninth best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. Washington ranks 25th in points in the paint allowed per game. And Zubac is that center, right, for the Clippers. Washington allows the third most points per game to opposing centers. So I think Zubac is definitely worth looking at there. And if you guys like Kawhi Leonard, he ranks second best on the Clippers in points in the paint per game, 40th best in the NBA in that category. Once again, Washington's bad at defending against points in the paint. They are overall a bad defensive team. They rank 27th in team defensive efficiency. Fast break points. I think Kawhi's got a nice advantage in that one. He ranks fourth best in the NBA in fast break points per game this year. Washington ranks 23rd in fast break points allowed per game. Washington's not good at defending against the three. Harden and Kawhi are good at shooting threes. Let's see. Kawhi's out today, I'm seeing actually. Yeah. Kawhi's out. So that could, increase some usage for Harden and or Zubac, right? Um, yeah, Harden is that projected point guard. One of his strengths is that 3-point ball. So I want to take a look to see how Washington has defended against that point guard position, shooting threes this season. They rank seventh worst at defending against point guards shooting 3-pointers. So, and then overall as a team, they're bad. What about? Oh yeah, Kawhi's out. Okay. Washington allows the second most assists per game out of any team. They allow the second most assists per game to shooting guards. So if you like Chris Dunn assists for some reason, I think that could be something worth looking into today. I'm trying to just see which position they are really bad at defending against assists allowed per game, and that's going to be their worst one. I think Zubac is pretty decent at assists sometimes. You may have to double check me on that. Maybe not accumulating a ton of them, but I know some people like to, maybe play him for, I don't know, 1, 2, 3 assists. This could be a game where he does it. So I don't know exactly what his line is at, but yeah, really, Washington is just bad against everything. They're just a bad team. So if you like Clippers player props today, I think pretty much everything is on the table here. And we can look at Harden versus Wizards statistics, just browse them a little bit, see what he's done against them. And there are his last 10 games. He had a game where he dropped 43 points on them, 59 points he had against them back in 2019, 54 in 2018. So, earlier this year, what was it? Just a few days ago, they played each other. Harden had 22 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists. Kawhi played in that game. It doesn't look like Zubac played in that one. But yeah, I think that looks good for player props. If you guys like taking overs on player props, Zubox and or Harden, maybe there's some other players that you guys like in that. But yeah, Washington's real bad at defending against teams. I'll lean towards the Clippers on the spread there. Clippers minus 6.5. The books are usually pretty good at setting those lines. So sometimes when you take a team like the Clippers that are supposed to win, sometimes it pays off just to, instead of taking a minus 6.5, taking them to minus 5.5. I do like the fact that the Clippers are on the road today. So maybe leaving it at 6.5, I'd still have to lean with. Same with Phoenix. Yeah, Kawhi's out. Harden played for the was a little revenge game. Harden. No, Harden did not play for the Wizards. He's played for Oklahoma City, Houston Rockets, Brooklyn Nets, Philadelphia 76ers, and the Clippers. Champagny over under 9.5 points. Hope I'm pronouncing that right. Champagny. I'll get better with the pronunciations of these players' names as I get a little bit more back into the NBA swing of things. Now that football, there's 4 teams left in the NFL, so I'll have some more time to do these NBA shows. I did them a lot last year. I've done some this year, and they've gone really good, except for I think it was like Halloween. That day was bad, but the day before Halloween was perfect. Just with against the spreads and stuff. Okay, so Champagny over under 9.5 points. Let's take a look at that. So he would most likely be coming off of the bench. And if you think that, this is going to be a blowout game, typically in blowout games, bench players get a little bit more run. So if you think this is going to be a blowout victory for the Clippers today, I would automatically give Champagny a bigger likelihood of getting these points. I want to see what the Clippers allow bench points to opposing teams. I see there's a lot of teams that have guys that have played 43, 44, 45 games, even 42, and they have allowed the Clippers have only played 41 games. They currently rank seventh. They allow the 7th fewest bench points, but that once again, that's not on a per game basis. So I'm thinking that the Clippers bench defense may be a little bit worse than what I'm seeing here. So that's good. How many times has he had 10 plus points in the past few games? 2 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 4 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 6 out of 10, and even a couple games after that. 6 out of his last 10 games, he's gone over that line. Champagny. Bucks are rolling him. Yeah, it looks like Jalen Johnson's maybe struggling a little bit. Kongwu. Is a Kongwu good at 3-pointers? Yeah. Yeah, dude can drain some threes from time to time. Okay. Champagny over under 9.5. So let's go look at a couple of other things here. Let's go look to see if his points per 40 minutes has gone up. It's been steady the past 3 seasons. Really, Champagny's doing much better at rebounding. But the Clippers rank 4th best in team rebounds allowed per game to opposing teams. And Champagny here on the FanDuel Daily Fantasy app is listed as a small forward / power forward. So I want to see how many points per game the Clippers are allowing to that position, those positions. They're about average, maybe even slightly below average at points per game allowed to small forwards. Power forwards, the Clippers allow the 4th fewest. So it just kind of depends on whether or not you think he's going to be in that, that small forward or power forward role. What I will say is that with Kawhi Leonard being out today, we know he's a really good defender. With him being out today, I think that gives us a better likelihood of Champagny going over the 9.5 points. Not saying that, Kawhi would be locking him down the entire time that he was on the floor, considering he's a bench player and Kawhi's a starter. But maybe, Kawhi and him cross paths for a few minutes throughout the game. It's not going to happen today. Zubac and Dunn. Looks like Zubac and Dunn are the best defenders, according to this crafted NBA.com list that I'm looking at. Once again, that's craftednba.com. They're saying that, Zubac is one of the better defenders in the league. Chris Dunn, who those guys are not only starting, but they don't play the same position as Champagny does. Points per 40 has been steady. You may have some other reasons why you like it, man. And, just based on the information that I've looked at, I think, you got a pretty decent chance at hitting that. I also just want to look real quick, fast break points, leaders. That's going to take me to NBA.com. The Clippers. Also, he takes some 3-pointers, he doesn't take a ton, but I also want to see, how they defend the Clippers against that 3-point field goal to his position. About average against the small forward position, and they defend against the power forward position really well. I think a lot of that may have to do with Kawhi Leonard, but he's out today. So, yeah, man, if you like it, I'm seeing a few more things here that that make it seem like he could get there. Koulibaly is also out for Washington, small forward / power forward. So, maybe that gives Champagny a little bit more run here today. He might see a little bit more playing time and or usage. What about in these blowout losses? Let me look at these blowout games. They lost to Sacramento by 13 on Friday. He had 15 points. He did play the Clippers here on the 14th of January. Had 7 points? Kawhi was in that game, though. I don't know if he defended Champagny at all. My guess is that there's probably a decent chance that he did. I mean, Champagny had 27 minutes that game, and Kawhi had 30. So he got close. That's what I would be looking at. Did Kawhi Leonard defend him at all that game? Did he cause any problems for Champagny? What was I doing? I was looking at leaders, right? I wanted to look at fast break points here. Here we go. Okay. Let me just look up something real quick. Koulibaly is out. I just really wanted to see if he was any sort of fast break threat. Doesn't look like he scores a lot of fast break points. What about points in the paint? Let me filter this by team. That's going to be easier for us here. Points in the paint is kind of more of his thing than fast break points. So I would feel a little bit more confident if he was better at points in the paint, considering the Clippers are worse against fast break points per game than points in the paint and even 3-pointers. They're about average, slightly below or slightly above average at defending against points in the paint and 3-pointers. The Clippers are, but fast break points is really where they're most vulnerable out of those three categories. But with Kawhi being out, could change things, Then we can look at that Wizards usage rate, Let's go look at who's really stepping up here for the Wizards offensively. It's really, and that's getting a good amount of minutes. It's Sarr, and then McCollum is gone now, right? He's with ATL. So he's on this list, which could open some more things up for Champagny. He has a 15.2% usage rate. His usage rate is actually pretty bad. But I want to compare it to like maybe a different player on a different team, right? Um, and compare his usage with him. I think it's doable if you like it, man. Let's see, Marvin Bagley over under 9.5, same team, but Bagley's usage rate is at 18.7%. Okay, and Bagley is good at scoring points in the paint, which is one of the Clippers' bigger flaws. Is defending again, or no, that was the fast break points, right? Um, Bagley. Oh, hold on, where is this game? Oh, here we go. Okay. Um, is there anybody else around that range? Bagley's averaging more points per game as well. Bagley is the center. And the Clippers defend against that center position better than the small forward position in regards to points per game allowed. They're good at defending against the power forward points per game, but no Kawhi today. Bagley's had 10 plus points in 5 out of 9 career games against the Clippers. And I don't know, man. I think it's pretty tough to decide which way to go with like these players that are listed at like 9.5. But I don't like the fact that Bagley and him have the same over under on points, but Bagley has a better usage rate, a higher usage percentage, and they both have. Bagley's actually averaged more minutes per game this season. The question is, will Champagny get more minutes because of Koulibaly being out? And Bagley, could see a little bit more run with the center for Washington out, Vukovic. Vukovic. I think I'd lean more towards Bagley's points. But really, really, Bagley hasn't got as many minutes in the most recent games as Champagny. How many times has Champagny had 10 plus in the last few games? Didn't we say like 5 out of 10 or something? 6 out of 10? Last 6 out of 10? Does he have any history against the Clippers? What is it giving me? I want. It's trying to give me Julian here. I want Justin. Doesn't look like he has ever gone over that line. Champagny against the Clippers. It looks like he's played 4 career games against them and has never had 10 plus points. The most points he had was 7 in that game that he played 27 minutes 5 days ago or so. What did Bagley do in that one? He had 15 points. Keyshawn George, 1.5 3. It's super juiced. Yeah. Before in the live, cook up a 4-leg parlay. Okay, cool. Yeah, we can do that. Now, once again, I'm just getting back in the swing of this. This is my first NBA show in a little while, but that'd be a good way to come back. Get a 4-leg, drop a 4-leg parlay, and see if we can get her done there. So yeah, I'm gonna stick to my guns there and say Bagley goes over the 9.5 instead of Champagny. And then you were talking about George, right? Keyshawn George. The Clippers, they're about average at defending against the 3-point shot. And against that specific position, the small forward position, which is the position that George is projected to start, they are below average at defending against the 3-point field goals made per game to that position. They're about average, slightly below average. And I think with Kawhi being out, could give them, a better, could give him a better chance of getting there. I'll look up George's career history against the Clippers, and he has had 2 3-pointers in that game a few days ago, 5 days ago against the Clippers, 23 points. So he got there, didn't shoot great from that 3-point line. But look, man, if Kawhi Leonard was out there and he's not today, if he did it with Kawhi being in that game, makes me kind of think he's going to do it without him, And how many times in the recent past has George, had 2+ 3-pointers? 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 4 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 5 out of 10, 5 out of his last 10 games he's got there. He's getting some good volume there, chucking up 8 threes his last game against Denver. I'm trying to see if we can find if he's like a streaky shooter or not. Sometimes when a player, let's say it's SGA, right? One night he drops 35. Maybe the next night he drops 10, 15, 20 points. I want to see if there's any sort of trends here to where, like, if George is on from the 3-point land the game before, does he carry that over into the next game? So I'm gonna just kind of browse his best 3-point games, right? Against the Mavericks, he had 7. The next game, he went 0 for 4 against Charlotte. Against Brooklyn, he went 5 out of 10. The next game, 4 out of 8 against Minnesota. That's straight. I'm trying to see some other games here. So those are really the 2 games. So blessed up P. The last time that George had 5 3-pointers in the game, like he did against the Nuggets. Let me backtrack. Against the Nuggets, I think I already mentioned this. George had 5 3-point field goals made. He went 5 for 8. Okay. The last time, other than that Nuggets game, the other time that he scored 5 3-pointers in a game, the next game that he played, he had 4 3-pointers. So I kind of like that trend too. But yeah, I think if he did it with Kawhi Leonard in that last game, there's probably even a better chance for him to get that in this one, right? How about John Collins? Points and rebounds? Man, John Collins was kind of bad to me, like, I don't know, 5 years ago. So I just kind of stay away from John Collins, but let's talk about it. John Collins. And then what was the question here? Points and rebounds? Okay. So let's go take a look at what his point line is at. John Collins, 15 and a half. Does anybody else have that feeling about John Collins? You guys there's something that you don't like playing as props? That's just how I naturally feel about him. I think he costed me one time, and I never forgave him. Points and rebounds. 20 and a half points plus rebounds. Okay. So John Collins projected to be the power forward there today for the Clippers, the starting power forward. And the Wizards allow the second most points per game to power forwards this season. The Wizards do. And then points plus rebounds. What about the rebounds? They allow the 5th most rebounds to opposing power forwards this season per game. But there's something cool that I want to look up here with this one, because I see that Chris Middleton is projected to be the starting power forward for Washington. So I want to know. That's going to be my first search here is because I know Chris Middleton used to play for the Bucks. I just want to know John Collins versus Middleton head-to-head statistics. Chris Middleton has a 12-5 career record against John Collins. If you think Washington's going to upset the Clippers today, you got that working with you. But yeah, I want to see how many times John Collins has had 16 plus points in a game against Chris Middleton. One out of his last two, two out of three, two out of four, three out of five, three out of six, three out of seven, three out of eight, four out of nine, 5 out of 10, 6 out of 11, 6 out of 12, 6 out of 13, 6 out of 14, 6 out of 15, 6 out of 16, 6 out of 17 career games. John Collins has had 16 plus points against Chris Middleton. So more times than not, he's gone under that line against Middleton. What's Middleton's line at? 11.5. If you guys like Middleton today for any reason, his points, he has had. Wow. I kind of like Middleton today. Here's why I'm liking Middleton a little bit today. Obviously, this is historical data. Middleton has in every game he's played against John Collins. Middleton 17 games against John Collins. Middleton has had 12 plus points. So if Middleton doesn't have 12 plus points today and you like Middleton points, you would be very unfortunate for him to not get there, considering he's got there in all 17 career games against John Collins. How many minutes has Middleton been playing? Twenty-seven. The last couple games, he's been playing about 27 minutes. A lot of these games against John Collins, he was getting 30s, 40s when he was probably with Milwaukee, right? But I see this game, he had 28 minutes against John Collins, 15 points. I know this is a little off track, blessed up P, but I just wanted to get you guys this information because I think it's pretty cool. 22 minutes against John Collins, had 19 points. I mean, it's not often that I see that in the NBA where a guy has played somebody 17 times and has gone over that line in every single game. Makes me really consider Middleton's points here. But, we're going to talk about John Collins. Rebounds. The Clippers are good at defending against the rebounds to opposing teams. And then to that, we're talking about John Collins, who plays for the Clippers. So we're looking at Washington. Yeah, Washington allows the second most rebounds per game to opposing teams. And the the Wizards allow the fifth most rebounds per game to opposing power forwards. I think I already mentioned all that. How many times has John Collins had 21 plus against Middleton? Points and rebounds. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8, 6 out of 9, 7 out of his last 10. Blessed up P. Looks like John Collins has some pretty good history at getting the points and rebounds against Middleton instead of just the points. What did we say the points was? 16 plus here. 2 out of 3, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 3 out of 8, 4 out of 9, 5 out of 10. So historically, against Middleton, John Collins has only had over 15 out of over 15 and a half points in 5 out of his last 10 games, compared to going over the 20 and a half points plus rebounds in 7 of his last 10 games against Chris Middleton. So, based on that aspect, I think, the rebounds included with the points is the way to go, or just rebounds by themselves. And something else I want to look at is just John Collins versus Wizards statistics. Not necessarily against Middleton, but against the Wizards in total. Um, how has he done against them historically? How many times has he had 16 plus points against them in his last 3 games? 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 3 out of 8, 5 out of 10. Against the Wizards, we're not talking about just Middleton anymore. Against the Wizards, he's had 16 plus points in his last 5 out of 10 games against the Wizards. And then points plus rebounds. How many times has he had 21 plus against the Wizards? 2 out of 2, 3 out of 3. Is this the rebound slot? Just got to double check. Okay. 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 3 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 6 out of 10. So more times than not, John Collins, he has better history going over the points and rebounds in his last 10 games, right? In his last 10 games, he has better history going over the 20 and a half points plus rebounds than just going over the 15 and a half points, which he's done that in his last 5 out of 10 games against the Wizards. Something else we could do, right, is look at John Collins, see if he's doing anything better than he's been doing this season. The points, blessed up P, are down. The points per 40, honestly, the rebounds per 40, everything is down for John Collins this season compared to previous years. But I think the potential for John Collins to get a good amount of rebounds, I mean, it's there. He's had a game this year where he had 10 rebounds, 11 rebounds, 12. So he can get there. And I think, it's when players don't go over their normal rebound line by a lot, where I'd be like, I don't know if the rebounds is really valuable. But I do think the rebounds are valuable in a game against a team that allows the second most rebounds per game to opposing teams. So yeah, I think rebounds have to be included with the John Collins stuff. Whichever way you decide to go. What is his rebound line? I'm just gonna guess it's, I don't know, 5.5. Yeah, it's 5.5. So, um, yeah, looks. I would like to include those rebounds with it. Blessed up P. Okay. Indiana at Philadelphia. Like I said, guys, a lot of lineups are not even out yet. Looks like we have a lineup confirmation for Oklahoma City, though. Oklahoma City and Cleveland. Looks like Dort is starting at that shooting guard position for Oklahoma City today. And they're playing Cleveland, I said. Cleveland's not good at defending against the 3-point ball. I feel like Dort is probably that 3-point shooter for Oklahoma City. I think that's what I said, right, about Cleveland. That was their biggest vulnerability. Yeah. Well, fast break points, they're not necessarily good at defending against either. Okay, anyways. And don't let it fool you. Jalen Williams is starting for Oklahoma City today, but it's the other Jalen Williams, Jaylin. Really, anything could any injury, any player could become questionable after I end the live stream. But the ones that I'm seeing right now that are the most worth keeping up to date with is going to be Cooper Flag. He's questionable to play for the Mavericks tonight. Questionable typically means there's about a 50% chance that he plays, 50% chance that he doesn't play. Sometimes you get to no player tendencies and kind of just know if they're going to play or not. For instance, if LeBron James, well, that's not a good example because I think he was on a back-to-back one day and everybody thought he was probably going to sit and he ended up playing and ended up being king of the court that night. So typically like Kawhi Leonard, right? From my understanding, he typically doesn't like to be playing back-to-back games. I don't know if that's the same case this season, but I know in previous years, if he played one night and was questionable that next day, I felt fairly confident that he wasn't going to play in that game. Josh Hart questionable for the New York Knicks tonight. Jalen Brunson questionable to play. Paul George and Embiid are both questionable for the Philadelphia 76ers. So let's keep an eye on that. Devin Booker questionable to play tonight. So that makes me, I said I liked Phoenix today. I mean, obviously, if Devin Booker is out, maybe that line drops a little bit, That's the question. Is that line set for him to play or not to play? As of right now, I'm still seeing it at minus 8.5. But let's say that Devin Booker plays tonight. I think that line will probably stay the same, maybe go up to 9.5. But if he doesn't play, I can see that line dropping more than it raising. I can see that line dropping more if he doesn't play than raising if he does play. So there may be some decent value on waiting to see if he's going to play or not, is what I'm really trying to get at. Ooh. Where were we? Oh, we were listing injuries to keep up with throughout the night. That looks like about it. But like I said, anything can pop up. I know Booker, his questionable status is relatively new. That news just broke not long ago. that he's now questionable. And typically, whenever you get that type of information at this time of day, that's not a good sign for somebody to play. I'm not saying that he absolutely will not play tonight, but I'm thinking there's a decent chance that he does not play tonight. I would have to lean towards him probably not playing instead of playing. But yeah, man, I would love to sit here and go through all these player props with you guys and stuff. But I'm just gonna run through the games real quick and just give some a brief analysis on what I think could be beneficial. Brunson, I mentioned that he's questionable tonight, but Dallas allows the most points in the paint per game out of any opposing team this season. Okay. And Brunson is the best points in the paint scorer for the New York Knicks. Next in line would be Karl Anthony Towns. So if Brunson's ruled out, Karl Anthony Towns leads the Knicks out of available players tonight in points in the paint per game against a team who allows the most points in the paint per game. So I think Karl Anthony Towns, could eat tonight, but let's say Brunson plays. I like his points in the paint advantage there. Jalen Brunson is a good 3-point shooter, but Dallas is really good at defending against that as a team. They rank second best in 3-point field goals allowed per game. The thing with Dallas tonight, though, is they got a lot of injuries. PJ Washington, Gafford, AD, maybe even Cooper Flag. So numbers could be a little bit skewed, but I don't think their points in the paint allowed per game is necessarily going to go up. I'm just thinking maybe their 3-point field goals allowed per game could go down. Is all I'm trying to get at with their injuries. Klay Thompson is the best 3-point field goals made per game shooter for the Dallas Mavericks. He ranks 18th best in the NBA, and the Knicks allow the third most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams. So if you like Klay tonight for some threes, maybe you got that working with you. I'm going to have to lean towards Dallas covering that one. I just think with Anthony Davis being out and all of those injuries, Cooper Flag questionable. I think a lot of people are going to be going with the Knicks tonight. And the Knicks have lost 3 games in a row. Dallas has won 2 in a row. I think a lot of people, will be leaning towards the Knicks tonight to cover, not just win, but cover. So I'm gonna lean towards Dallas covering that one. I think it'll be pretty lopsided too. I think right now a lot of people like the Knicks in that one. And typically, like the more people, the more money that's on one team, the more I kind of like the other team. That's not always the case. But I think it's going to be the case for me in that one. Okay, Boston at Detroit. Jaylen Brown has an 8-3 career record against Cade Cunningham. Both of these teams are pretty equal against the spread. Duncan Robinson. Don't know if he's been getting any run lately there for Detroit. Yeah, he's been playing a little bit. Duncan Robinson, I think, is a player worth looking at tonight for Detroit Pistons, the shooting guard slash small forward. He is the best 3-point field goal made per game shooter on the Pistons, and Boston ranks 26th in 3-point field goals allowed per game as a team. So I think Duncan Robinson looks like he's been doing pretty good lately. 16 points in his last game, 19, 20. So looks like he's you know, on a little hot streak right now. Do just want to say Detroit sends their opponents to the free throw line more than any other team in the league per game this season. So if you like anybody for Boston with points, and they're good at getting to the line, I think you have an added benefit there. And I want to look to see, real quick, who for Boston, my guess would be Jaylen Brown. Yeah, he ranks ninth best in the NBA at getting to the free throw line. Free throws attempted per game, 7.3 is his average. So if you do like Jaylen Brown tonight for any reason for points, you have that added benefit of him potentially getting to the line more times than he usually does, considering he's going up against the team that sends their opponents to the free throw line more than anybody. Tobias Harris. For Detroit, you said rebounds and assists. For Detroit tonight, let's go take a look at rebounds and assists for Tobias. Let's see. Tobias rebounds over under 4.5. Tobias assists over under 2.5. And then what about the combo? The RA over under RA for Tobias over under 6.5 combined. Okay. So let's just go take a look real quick. What's he been doing better or worse at this season compared to other seasons? Points per 40 is okay. But we're not looking at points, right? Rebounds and assists. Rebounds per 40 is down. This is the lowest that Tobias has had his rebounds per 40 minutes since the 2017-18 season. Assists look like they've been kind of steady there. Boston as a team is in the top 10 in defending against both of those categories. They rank 10th best in rebounds allowed per game as a team, 9th best in assists allowed per game as a team. Tobias Harris is projected to be the starting power forward for Detroit tonight. So we're looking at how many rebounds per game Boston allows to the power forward position. They rank ninth best at defending against that. The assists by Boston to the power forward position, they rank the eighth best. So just in that regard, he's got, a tough matchup. But let's go look at Tobias Harris versus Celtics statistics. How many times has Tobias had 5+ rebounds against the Celtics in his past 10 games? 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8, 6 out of 9, 7 out of his last 10 games. Really, 9 out of his last 12. But 7 out of 10. I like to keep things in tens, and 7 out of 10 or 20s. Yeah, everything. I like to keep it the same with everybody, whatever number I choose, whether it be 10, 25, 3. Um, yeah, Tobias Harris, 7.5 or 7 out of his last 10 games against Celtics, he's gone over. What about the 3+ assists? His last 3 games against the Celtics, he's had 3+ assists. 3 out of 4, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8, 6 out of 9, 7 out of 10 with that as well. Here's the thing though, man, is that, and it goes back to, could he go over one of those numbers by a long shot? I think there's a better chance for those rebounds, right? His line is at 4.5, but I'm seeing some of these games he's had 8, 9, 11 rebounds against Boston. Whereas the most assists that I've seen him have in a game against Boston in his last, really, there's been one time in his last 22 games where he's had 5 assists against Boston. So I'm thinking I feel better about the rebounds. If I were to have to choose between the two, rebounds or assists for Tobias. And then let's go look at how many times he's had 5+ rebounds in his last 10 games, not against Boston, just his last 10 games, last 2 games. I'm not going to count this game against him. He played 6 minutes. So 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 3 out of 6, 4 out of 7, 4 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 5 out of his last 10. He's hit that. Rebounds, 5 of his last 10 games, period. And then the assists, how many times has he had 3+ assists in his last 10 games? Not against Boston, but just his last 10 games of the regular season this season. 1 of 2, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 9, 7 out of 10. So he's a little bit more consistent getting those assists this season than the rebounds. Jaylen Brown, Derek White. So maybe Tobias Harris has played Derek White when Derek White played for a different team. So let's look up. And I know they're not going to be guarding each other most likely. They might graze paths here and now every now and then, but I just want to see if there's any cool trends here. Tobias and Derek White. How many times has Tobias Harris had 3+ assists in games against Derek White? Uh, one last 3 games, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8, 6 out of 9, 7 out of 10. What about those rebounds? 5+ rebounds. 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8, 6 out of 9, 7 out of 10 as well. I think the 6.5 rebounds plus assists doesn't look half bad there, man. I think there's I think I would rather play I like the consistency that Tobias has with the assists. The rebounds, I like the bigger potential. So I would you know, if I were playing a Tobias Harris prop tonight, let's say I wanted to go rebounds with the Tobias at 4.5, I may take that up to 5.5, 6.5, maybe even 7.5, instead of playing the normal 4.5 line, because um, I think there's a better chance for Tobias to go way over his rebound line than there is the assist line, but the assist line has been more consistent. So I wouldn't just play the rebound line at the 4.5. I would take it up and get a better odds on it. With the assist line, I think if I had to play one of the two normal lines, I would go assists. And I think, combining them may not be a bad idea either. Blessed up P. Um, because let's say that somebody did two singles, one on the over 4.5 rebounds for Tobias, and one, uh, you know, over the 2.5 assist line. Then you really need eight. You need 8 total rebounds and assists by Tobias. Whereas if you combine the two, you need 7. It's like, how many games has he had the rebounds and assists? That's another thing. How many times in this last few games? 2 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7, 7 out of 8, 8 out of 9, 8 out of his last 10 games. Blessed up P. He's had 7+ rebounds and assists in a game, which is better than the 7 out of 10 where he just had with his assists. So I think I'd be leaning more towards the rebounds and assists, and I think it looks okay. Considering his history and everything, I do not like that Boston has done good at limiting rebounds and assists this season, but I think that line is low enough for me to be okay with it. But just with that game alone, I think Duncan Robinson is somebody to look at in that one. And then to cover, probably be leaning towards Boston in that one. Both of these teams are pretty close against the spread. They basically have the same record against the spread. What about Detroit as the home team? They're 11-9 against the spread. Boston as the away team is 14-8. So Boston is better against the spread on the road than Detroit is at home. And it also looks like, just based on DK and what they're showing me here, they're saying maybe a little bit more people are interested in Detroit at least winning that game. But I'm gonna lean towards, as of right now, Boston plus 2.5. But like I said, guys, like, um, the injuries are huge. What if I tell you right now, it's 3 p.m. Eastern time. This game doesn't start till 8 p.m. Eastern time. I could say I'm leaning towards Boston, and next thing you know, Jalen Brown and Derek White, here after I get off the air, they become questionable. So that's definitely worth, these player injury updates, definitely worth monitoring. The Clippers in Washington. Ugly game. I mean, I just can't with Washington. I know the Clippers are going to be, probably the team that the public likes the most today against the lowly Wizards. Um, I might lean towards Washington to cover plus 6.5 in that one. But that's gross though, because Clippers, Washington has the second worst, against the spread, against the spread record this season. They're on a 6-game losing streak. The Clippers, I believe they're the hottest team in the NBA right now. That they're on a 5-game winning streak. It seems too good to be true. Here's one of those spots where it just seems too good to be true. You're telling me I'm not saying the Wizards win this game, because I think that's too good to be true as well. And if I were to have to lean one way, I would still go with the Clippers to cover, just because the Wizards are so bad. But if I were to go with the Clippers, man, I think I would have to. I don't know, because there seems like there's usually one game where everybody has the Clippers in their slips today, right, on the money line. But it always seems like there's one day where some team, pulls off an upset. A team that's supposed to lose pulls off an upset and messes up everybody's tickets. Question is are the Wizards that team today? I think we said something about how Chris Middleton has a favorable record against, it's like John Collins, I think it was. It could be. I'll let you be the decider of that. I've looked at a lot of information, not just yesterday, and this weekend, but today already. I've been live for what, about 3 hours now, so I'm feeling a little bit fatigued. Not to complain, but just to let you know where my state of mind is at. Um, but I can, read off some statistics for you real quick. I already mentioned that I think, the, player props for Clippers players are statistically looking good. I haven't looked at everybody's lines, but just based on Washington's lack of defense, they are a bad defensive team. They are pretty much bad in every category: rebounds allowed, assists allowed, points in the paint allowed, fast break points per game allowed, 3-point field goals allowed. So, um, Indiana at Philadelphia. I think Siakam has a good opportunity today for a couple of reasons. One is that he's good at scoring fast break points, and Philadelphia allows the second most fast break points per game to opposing teams. And Siakam is good at scoring points in the paint. Philadelphia is below average, not significantly below average, but they are below average in points in the paint allowed per game. Tyrese Maxey, I know he is a very popular player, but here's the thing about Maxey is that Paul George and Embiid are questionable to play. And if they are out, he may definitely get more usage, which typically means better chance for points. And if those guys are out, they may ask him to carry more of a workload with the points. I don't know if you guys were thinking about maybe taking Maxey's rebounds or assists, but if those guys are out, I would have to think that he would have a score first mentality. But I think Maxey has a really good points in the paint advantage today, considering Indiana ranks 27th in points in the paint allowed per game, and Maxey ranks 15th best in the NBA in points in the paint per game. But Indiana's good at defending against fast break points and three-pointers, which Maxey is better at than at least his ranking is better at in those categories than points in the paint. So that concerns me about Maxey today. Yeah, he ranks second best in the NBA in fast break points per game, but Indiana ranks ninth best in fast break points allowed per game to opposing teams. And then Maxey ranks fourth best in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game, but Indiana ranks first in 3-point field goals allowed per game. If you guys were liking a Philadelphia 76er for a rebound prop, Indiana allows the most rebounds per game to opposing teams. If you guys like an assist prop for Indiana, Philly ranks 23rd in assists allowed per game. They actually rank 23rd in rebounds allowed per game as well. So I think what it comes down to at that point is if you guys have access to the fantasypros.com, usually whenever I type in NBA defense versus position in my search engine, it's one of the first things that comes up. You can filter it by position and statistic on what the opposing team allows to that position or statistical category. Phoenix versus Brooklyn. I already told you guys, I think, Phoenix in that one, but I think it's worth waiting to see if Booker is playing or not. Right now, I would consider him more unlikely to play than to play. But I think it's worth the wait because I don't think that line will significantly go up if he does play. But if he does not play, I do think it could drop a few points, 2, 3, maybe 4 points. Brooklyn's playing on a back-to-back, and Michael Porter Jr. might be fresh tonight. I think he is technically. Oh, here we go. I'm seeing that Michael Porter Jr. will play for the Brooklyn Nets tonight. He didn't play yesterday, so He may be a little bit more fresh than some of these other Brooklyn Net players, considering that uh, they played yesterday. Mm, Mark Williams, center for Phoenix, I think has a good spot here. He's in the top 50 in points in the paint per game, and Brooklyn ranks 24th in points in the paint allowed per game. If Devin Booker plays, I give him a good fast break advantage. He's good at scoring fast break points. Brooklyn's not good at defending against those. And then 3-point field goals. Both of these teams are good at defending against the three. I mentioned Michael Porter Jr. is, might have a fresh set of legs under him tonight, but um, Phoenix is good at defending against the three ball, which is Michael Porter Jr.'s biggest strength. So just keep that in mind. Assist allowed per game. Brooklyn ranks 25th. So if you like a Phoenix Sun player for assist, you got that going for you. And Utah and San Antonio Spurs. I think I saw Vassell is out. But if you guys like Castle, I see yeah, Devin yeah, he's out. About Stephon Castle. I think Stephon Castle has a nice fast break advantage today. He ranks 38th best in the NBA in fast break points per game. And then Utah allows the third most fast break points to opposing teams this season. And then Utah allows the most 3-point field goals made per game to opposing teams. So if you guys like anybody for the Spurs to hit some threes tonight, you got that going for you with Vassell being out. I think the next guy in the line, Julian Champagny would be the next guy who leads the San Antonio Spurs team in 3-point field goals made per game. If you guys like an assist prop for a Spur tonight, Utah allows the most assists per game to opposing teams. Utah does have the worst team defensive efficiency, so they're a very bad defensive team. They are decent at preventing points in the paint. They rank 19th. But yeah, the fast break points they're bad at. 3-pointers allowed, they're bad at. Assists allowed, they're bad at. The rebounds, they're somewhat decent at containing teams rebounding against them. They rank 19th in rebounds allowed per game, which is still below average. But these other categories, they're near the bottom of the NBA. If you like anybody for the Spurs to maybe get some steals tonight, Utah turns the ball over a lot, and the Spurs cause turnovers. Now, obviously, Wemby blocks would be a big, probably a popular prop. Teams that are blocked the most is what I'll type in the search engine here. Opponent blocks per game, right? Not how many blocks am I getting per game. How many times are the teams that I'm going up against blocking me? Utah gets blocked the third most out of any team in the NBA this season per game. So if you like Wemby blocks tonight, you got that going for you. Just to give you guys an idea on who else gets blocked, Portland gets blocked the most times per game, and then it's the Pelicans, Utah, Washington, Detroit Pistons, Orlando Magic, Toronto Raptors, Chicago Bulls. Also, yeah, if you'd like somebody for the Spurs tonight to score points and they're good at getting to the free throw line, Utah sends their opponents to the free throw line, the third most out of any team in the NBA. Then Miami at Golden State Warriors. Steph Curry has a 14-3 career record against Andrew Wiggins. I think I saw Blessed Up P mentioning something about a potential revenge game in the chat earlier. Maybe here's a spot, with Andrew Wiggins being with the Miami Heat now. He used to, rock with the Golden State Warriors. So, and this one's being played in Golden State. So there, maybe he has a little revenge game or something like that. Statistically, though, I see that Jimmy Butler leads the Warriors in points in the paint per game, and Miami is below average at defending against points in the paint per game this season. They rank 22nd in points in the paint allowed per game. With Miami, I think Norman Powell could do good with the fast break points, and same with Andrew Wiggins. I don't know if these players are playing or not. Or it looks like Harrow is out. Okay, Jaquez, he looks probable to play tonight. He has a fast break advantage as well. In this order, Norman Powell, Jaquez, Andrew Wiggins for fast break points per game. Those are the leaders on this team, and all three of them rank in the top 50 in the NBA. Golden State ranks 19th in fast break points allowed per game. I think Steph Curry and Moses Moody have a 3-point advantage here tonight, just based on this one statistic that I'm looking at. I'm not looking to see. I haven't looked to see if Curry gets shut down when he plays Miami with a 3-point ball, but I think it's worth looking into, considering that Curry ranks first in the NBA in 3-point field goals made per game. Miami is below average in defending against the 3 ball, and to his position, that point guard position that Curry likes to play in. Miami ranks 5th worst in 3-point field goals allowed per game to opposing point guards. So I think Curry points and or 3-point field goals are worth looking into in that one. What else here? If you like assists for any Golden State Warrior tonight, Miami ranks 22nd in assists allowed per game, 27th in rebounds allowed per game. Miami does. So if you like a rebound prop for Golden State, there you go. I'm going to lean towards Miami to cover in that one. They have won 3 games in a row against the Warriors. Yeah, I'm going to lean towards Miami. I don't even know what the spread is. Plus 5.5, sure. Let me take it up to 6.5 for Miami, plus that 6.5 there. Fox steals. Let's take a look. Yeah, this is my first NBA show back for a while here, guys. So just trying to break off the cobwebs here and get back into the routine of doing these shows with you guys. Like I said, I can get real specific with the research, or just kind of broadly talk about it. I think today. I mean, obviously, I got real specific at the start. Now I'm being a little bit more general. I'm gonna log out here in just a minute. Really, let's say usually games on Mondays in the NBA starts around what 7 p.m. Eastern time. So I usually like to start doing shows around 5 p.m. Eastern time so we can get injury updates because that means so much. I mean, it's it's tough to predict how a game will go when you don't know who's playing in the NBA. In football, I have a better idea. I think in football, we know a little bit more ahead of time who's in and who's out. Typically, have a better idea who's in and who's out. You'll see me do shows typically close as I can to tip off. The reason why I started early today is because we have that Milwaukee and Atlanta game on, which is a good one. That one's what 6 points, about 4 minutes left. Hey, Washington, they're up by a point against the Clippers. It's still very early though. But yeah, let's talk about Fox real quick, and then call it a session because I am getting a little hungry here. Okay. Steals, defense, player defense, steals, over under. Fox 1.5 at plus chicken at plus 175. So I mentioned, Utah ranks 24th in turnovers. Turnovers per game. So they're not. They turn the ball over. De'Aaron Fox versus Jazz statistics. How many times, in the recent past has De'Aaron Fox had 2+ steals against the Utah Jazz here? One out of his last two, 1 out of 3, 2 out of 4, 2 out of 5, 2 out of 6, 2 out of 7, 2 out of 8, 3 out of 9, 3 out of his last 10 games against Utah, which isn't great, 3 out of 10 against Jazz. He's had 2+. What if we took that down to 1? Uh, uh, the last 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 5 out of 6, 6 out of 7, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 9, 7 out of 10. So taking it down to 1, if you can, you're looking at 7 out of 10. His last 7 out of 10 games against the Jazz, compared to his last 3 out of 10 was 2+. And you can even get more specific with it. Does Keontae George, like NBA turnovers leaders, not team but player turnover leaders? Is there is there a player that turns the ball over a lot? And so Keontae George turns the ball over the 10th most times per game than any other player in the NBA. And that's who De'Aaron Fox will probably primarily defend. So, based on that, I'm liking what I see. I also just want to take a look. I know Nurkic. I'm sure you guys remember, but Nurkic used to play for my Nuggets, right? But he hasn't always played for the Jazz. So I just wanted to take a look real quick. Fox versus Nurkic head-to-head statistics. Jokic passes it to Nurkic and back to Jokic. And he's passing it back to Nurkic. All right. Nurkic versus Fox. I just want to see. Maybe De'Aaron Fox has had 2+ steals in every career game that he's played against Nurkic. I don't know. Maybe. If he does, that makes me like it more. They've played 18 times throughout history. Obviously, everything's not historical, but sometimes it is, and that I think it's worth looking into. I know some people hear me talk about what happened back in 1814, and they're like, "Dude, it's 2026." But one of the reasons why I like the Patriots yesterday is because historically that franchise has done they've accomplished much more than Houston. Fox, he's had 2+ steals in his last 1 out of 2 games, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5 against Nurkic, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7, 6 out of 8. Oh no, hold on. Let me make sure I'm reading the right column. Sometimes it switches on me. 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 4 out of 6, 5 out of 7. His last 5 out of 7 games against Nurkic, he's had 2+ steals. 5 out of 7, 5 out of 8, 5 out of 9, 5 out of 10. Okay, 5 out of 10. But what about 1+? 1 out of 2, 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, 4 out of 5, 5 out of his last 6, 6 out of his last 7, 6 out of his last 8, 7 out of his last 9, 7 out of his last 10 games. He's had 2+ steals against Nurkic, which gives me another reason to like this prop here. I think it's gonna be close. What's he done for us lately, De'Aaron Fox? How many steals has he had? I mean, he hasn't had 2+ steals in a while. 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 out of 8. Only two out of the last 10 games he had 2+ steals. In fact, he had 3 plus exactly 3 steals in those games that he did have 2+. But 1+ steal, he hasn't had a steal in the last couple games. Makes me want to look at how many times has that happened throughout the season. De'Aaron Fox, how many times has he had games where he didn't have a steal and then got one the next day or didn't the next day? How many times has De'Aaron Fox gone on a no steal game streak? I see earlier this season, the second and third game that he played this year, he didn't have a steal. The next game against Golden State, he had 3. And then here, back on December 21st, 23rd, those 2 games, he did not have a steal. The next day, he had 1. So all season long, it's been relatively short season so far, though. All season long, he has not had a game where he has had 3 games in a row without a steal. So that makes me gives me another reason to at least like 1 tonight. Wow, there goes Atlanta. What if they won by exactly 1? That'd be crazy. Okay. That game's coming down to the wire, though. Okay. What about last year? How many games last year did he have back-to-back games without a steal? Same with last year. I see a time where he didn't have a steal for 2 straight games, like he's on now. Next game, he had 1 steal. 2 games last year, he didn't have a steal. That next game, he had 4. He did go 3 games without a steal last year. One time last year. And then let me just look at the season before that. And then, yep, same thing. 2, and then 2 games without a steal, and then he got 2. So it's not often, right? The past 3 seasons that he's played in the NBA, he's only had he's gone on a 3-game stealless streak once. Information from here in Vegas, Mavs plus 10.5. Source in NYC, I know will be on the Mavs plus 10.5. 87% of the money is on the Knicks, minus 10.5 here at Suncoast Vegas. Pat's better personnel, better coaches, and Josh McDaniels is the key. Yeah, definitely a lot of factors in that Patriots Houston game yesterday. Yeah. I was thinking about the Mavs too. There, Adrian Kennedy. Thank you for sharing with us. What game was that? Mavs and Knicks. Yeah, I was thinking maybe a little bit too many people were going to be interested in the Knicks today. So, yeah, I was thinking the Mavericks there myself on that plus 10.5. Is it? Plus 11.5 here on this book that I'm looking at. Probably 10.5 on some other books. Things change. So thanks for that. Thanks for that information there. All right. Well, I think that just about does it. Hopefully, you guys liked this show and got some good information out of it. I will be doing more NBA shows now that football season is wrapping up. And, MLB, I like to do those baseball shows. Those MLB shows will be right around the corner as well. It's tough for me to give a favorite play of the day right now because of the schedule that we have today. Like I said, there's a lot of information that's not out yet. But, right now, yeah, I'm thinking Mavericks look good. I think with the spread, I think somebody in the chat was talking about that, Adrian, there. Thank you for those comments. Looks like Jalen Brunson is cleared to play, guys. Before I get out of here, I'm seeing Jalen Brunson will play today. I'm seeing Josh Hart will play today per rotowire.com. Cooper Flag is still questionable. Okay. But the other notable injuries that I'm seeing here to keep up to date with: Paul George, small forward for Philadelphia; Joel Embiid, center for Philadelphia; Devin Booker, shooting guard for Phoenix. And that looks like about it, but other things could pop up. Right now, like I said, I got my eye on that Phoenix game. I'm looking to see if Booker's playing or not, though. Like I said, I think if he does play, if he does not play, the line will go down more than it will go up if he ends up playing. So be looking out for that. Yeah, I think Phoenix is worth a look there, and I think that about does it here. But I'd like to say thank you for joining today. Blessed Up P. We'd like to say thank you to all the sponsors: BetUS, MyBookie.ag, Walmart.com, Open Goal, the MLB and NFL Pro Shops, and W Energy Drinks. Then, yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. Good luck today. Thanks for all the comments and chat. If you guys could hit that subscribe button, we would really appreciate it, and turn those notifications on. But if you don't want to do that, we still appreciate you guys just for tuning in or stopping by. So, um, let's see what tomorrow brings us here. And then tomorrow we got a few NBA games. Okay. Yeah. So I'll try to shoot for 5 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. If I miss that one, we'll try on Wednesday for that next show. Okay, guys. But yeah, once again, thanks for tuning in. Good luck. Not moved out.
This non-casual podcast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or reused without the authorized written consent of the Not Moved Podcast Network. Thank you, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.